How's your book?
It's very good. We are going to have a peaceful and quiet life together.
Peaceful?
How's your book?
My book's awesome. I'm gonna be the best dad ever.
Dad? I'm not having kids.
What do you mean you're not having kids?
I don't want to be a mom.
But I want to be a dad. We have a problem.
I'm Hannah. This is Michael, my husband, who actually doesn't want kids.
That's true.
And this is Wife Without Kids. This channel is all about creating a supportive and non-judgmental community for those of us who have made the choice to not have any children. We're going to give you guys some tips that you might find helpful if you don't want kids and you're in a relationship with someone that does want kids. We are not therapists or counselors. This is just our opinion.
So the first thing to ask yourself when you're in a relationship is this a new or a well-established relationship? If it's brand new, that changes things, doesn't it?
You probably don't want to bring it up on the first date. I mean, if you're the kind of person that really likes to go fast, you could, but we made the decision to wait for a few months actually before we brought it up.
Yeah, I remember this one time I was dating this girl, and I think it was like the first date, and she said, "My biological clock is ticking."
It's a true story. He's not joking. She
and
really did say that.
I was like, what? I don't even have a biological clock.
I actually don't either. High five.
Yeah. Don't have to worry about that daylight savings time.
It takes time for couples to open up to each other sometimes, so bringing it up first, right off the bat, might be a little bit aggressive, but you also don't want to wait too long before the other person is super invested in the relationship and then you find out you're completely on different pages when it comes to having kids.
Yeah, that's bad. Definitely.
If your relationship is already well established, you probably have already talked about it. You obviously want to talk about it before you get engaged and definitely before you get married. So if you bring this up for discussion and your partner says, yeah, I want kids, and you've already decided you don't want kids, you're obviously not going to be on the same page. So assume if they're telling you that they want kids, that's actually what they mean.
But here's the thing, people can change or they might not even know right off the bat. Especially if you get married really young, you're still kind of figuring yourself out. So it's very difficult for someone to actually say definitively, no, I will never want children for the rest of my life and that's never going to change. That's kind of a hard decision to make.
Right, sometimes people are just going to be undecided and they're actually really not going to know. So if you definitely do not want kids and you're with someone that is undecided, keep that in the back of your mind. I don't think it's a relationship deal breaker per se, but it's probably something that as you continue to be together, you need to talk about because at some point they may change their minds.
The other recommendation that I'd have for you is to make a list of non-negotiables. This is a list of things that you highly value and you're not willing to compromise on. It's really important that you know what those are going into any relationship, really. But especially when it applies to something like whether you want to be child-free in your life or not.
So that was definitely something that was on the top of my non-negotiable list. I did not want to be a mom, and I was very sure of that. There is always a tiny chance that you could change your mind, but I was pretty set in that. Something that can be really hard sometimes is for people to be completely honest about how they feel. Because if you really like the person you're with, you want to please them. You don't necessarily want to say something that might scare them off. But I think when it comes to having kids, if you really don't want kids, it's super important to say that. Just be straight up about it.
Yeah, it's so important to be able to tell the person you're with the truth and like the honest truth. You want to be yourself. And if you're with someone and you can't be yourself, then you probably shouldn't be with that person. That would be my suggestion at least. Something's wrong there. That would be a red flag for me.
Oh, I got this hair. I can see it. It's like waving. Making the choice to not have kids is a choice. It's not a social obligation, so you don't have to feel guilty if you choose not to have kids. And if you tell your partner that you don't want kids, they might not understand it, but you don't have to justify the reasons that you're not having kids. There could be many reasons. Some of them could be personal, some of them could be private. Oh, that's the same thing.
If you're totally off the page with someone and they really are wanting kids, they're going in that direction, that's something that's really important. That's on their non-negotiable list. But it's not on yours. You don't want kids, they do want kids. That's a pretty big deal. That's something that you really need to analyze for yourself and say, hey, if this is something that I need in my life and I'm not willing to negotiate that, then perhaps you need to look for someone else.
And I know that can be really challenging and really hard for people, but it comes down to this. There is more than one person out there for you. I don't necessarily believe in this idea of like soulmates and there's only one person in the entire world for you.
Wait, what? No.
Choosing to stay with someone just because you think you can't get or you won't find anyone else is not a good reason to stay with someone, because it comes to a point where those two choices are going to come to a head. And then you're going to be fighting over, are we going to have kids or are we not going to have kids? So honestly, sometimes it's better just to separate and go your separate ways, because there is somebody else out there for you.
The biggest reason I find that people stay is fear. Fear that they're not going to find someone better. And then, oh man, they better just stay with this person. But that's not a good reason to make an important decision like that. Don't do it based on fear.
Our fertility window is a lot smaller than a man's fertility window. A girl does not want to spend time with a guy that is wasting her time. Because if you really want to be a mom, there's going to be a point in your life where you're going to be like, all right, I'm ready for this. Let's get this started. And if you're with somebody and then they finally tell you, oh, you know what, by the way, I don't think I actually want to be a dad or I don't want to have kids, a girl is going to be choked because she's going to feel like the guy is wasting her time, to be honest. And then she's going to want to find somebody else that she actually can have kids with. So if you don't want kids, be honest, tell the truth, because it can save you a lot of heartbreak. Next up. If you don't want kids, don't try and persuade your partner that wants kids into not wanting kids, because it's not going to work. It is a bad idea, and here's why. They might agree with you for a little while, and they may go along with it. But at some point, if they really want to be a parent, they are suddenly going to really want kids. And then what do you do?
A lot of this has to do with being respectful of other people. And you can't force someone into your mold, and they shouldn't do the same thing to you. And having a successful relationship means that you accept someone, they accept you, and you go from there. And you can grow together as a couple, and you will change your mind on certain things, but it shouldn't be forced. And you shouldn't go into a relationship expecting that that's going to happen down the road.
You bring up a really good point, actually, because people do change their minds. There are girls that I've known, and they're adamant that they do not want kids. And then you know what? They kind of get to that place where their biological clock starts ticking. They're like late 20s, early 30s, and guess what? Suddenly, they actually want kids. I think if you're married, it changes things a little bit too, because you've already made a commitment to somebody. So if someone changes their mind, obviously you're going to need to have a lot of discussion about it.
You know, I might be a little old-fashioned on this, but I think it's important that if someone does change their mind in a relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean you should terminate that relationship. And in this sense, like for me, I want to be with Hannah for life. And even if she were to change her mind, highly unlikely, or I were to change my mind, I don't see that as a reason where I'm going to leave her or she should leave me, hopefully.
But it is true. I don't think that that necessarily means that, okay, now you break up and go your separate ways. I was referring more to that if you were in a dating relationship where you still have the option to sort of, you know what, this isn't working for me, I'm going to leave. But I think a marriage commitment is a little bit stronger than dating, or it should be, and so that changes things. And then here comes your other option. I don't think that this is necessarily the best option, but some people do choose to do this. You can stay with the person that wants kids even if you don't want kids. Now, the part about this that makes it really challenging is somebody is going to be compromising. So if I don't want kids and I'm married to someone and I know that he really wants kids, I think there can be some resentment building up on both sides. Resentment for me because I'm always going to feel pressured to give him kids even though I've already told him I don't want kids. And then do you think you would feel some kind of resentment?
Yeah, this is why it's really important that you pick someone to be with if you're going to have a long-term relationship with someone that actually lines up with your values. It's just such a great way to avoid future resentment and problems in your relationship if you stick with that. And I know it can be hard because you can find someone that might tick a lot of those boxes, but they're missing just a couple, maybe one or two. And you're like, yeah, but they're so great. Why can't I stay with them? You know, I'm really attracted. We have such a great time, but there's that issue with kids.
If you do end up being with someone that wants children and you really don't want children and you become a parent and you realize, oh man, this is really what I didn't want and it's exactly what I imagined in my mind to be and now I'm stuck being a parent, I feel like the individuals or the people that are going to be getting the raw end of that deal are going to be the children. Because how could you not feel resentful and irritated being a parent when you realize, I don't even like being a parent, it just doesn't fit into my lifestyle, I don't have the patience for it, or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, you know, and this is kind of a strange analogy, but it actually reminds me, oh no, trust me, but this actually reminds me of shopping for clothes. And I know this is like way more important than shopping for clothes thing, and you go into a store and you're trying on different things, you're like, yeah, you know, this looks pretty good. You know, there's some good things about it, but there's, you know, it just has that one little part that, I don't know if I really like that. But you buy it and you bring it home and you put it in your closet. And it literally sits there for a year. And you like almost never wear it. Maybe you wore it once and you never wore it again. Don't settle. Do not settle. You will regret it.
It can be really difficult to walk away from a relationship that you think has a lot of potential and someone that really fits who you are as a person. But if that individual does not share your desire to be child-free, it's going to be a lot more hurt in the future if you're trying to now negotiate and make that work. And that brings us to what is wrong with women who don't want to have kids in the 21st century. Check out this playlist right up here to find out what's wrong with them. How aggressive were you?